never interested in business and really doesn't have a business mind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So Harry, you talked about actually passing on the company to your 4 children. Larry owning 50% of the company, and your other 3 children taking part of the other 50%. How is the business governed today, and what is your role within the company today?
Well, my son has the core of people that manage the business, segments of the business, intact, and has not had to replace either a senior person, which is our CFO, or the chief merchant, or the sales promotion and advertising person. So he still has a very intact group of people, but he's conscious of developing succession within those areas. So I think he's got strength to continue to pursue expansion and increases in our stores. The second part of your question was
with regards to your role in the organization.
Yeah. I'm left to more or less do what I want to do, and I don't want to sever my ties to the business. I still have customers that call, and I like to go into the store and help them. I'm there on Saturday because I love the activity, and they seem to like having me around because I know so many of the customers. And not only that, they find me somewhat charming. And my son, it describes what he's doing to me. He isn't necessarily looking for my advice. Occasionally he is, but I know better than to advise him because we're 2 different kinds of managers. I graduated from the selling floor. He never really spent years solving customers' minds like I told you. That doesn't make me a better merchant, but that was my style. His style is he's well-educated in business, finance, and has a flair, and is doing good things with the advertising. Did you see the Steve Nash advertising this week in the newspaper? No. That's a coup. That really is a coup, you know, getting Steve Nash on the cover of a magazine and in our ads. There was another ad in full color today with Steve Nash. He's doing that. He's doing great things.
I did see your ads with the CEO of Porter, with the dean
Yeah.
of the Rockland
Yeah.
business. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe the CEO of Taxi as well.
Right.
That was interesting
Right.
to see.
Yeah. I am free to do what I want to do. As an example, I want to go out west and visit our stores, hold meetings on a Saturday morning. The staff seem to welcome me, and discuss activities and answer their queries without causing a polarization in the management. Because my son has to be, as I said, allowed to do his own thing. Develop an understanding of service. It's just mind-boggling for them. The lady back there. Could you speak just a bit louder?
I was just wondering, you said that the American companies you were worried about, but what about Holt Renfrew?
Can you repeat that?
What about Holt?
What about Holt Renfrew?
Holt Renfrew are a competitor, but they're principally a women's store. They have a women's stores mentality, and they have a underproductive menswear business. They're envious of our business. But we specialize in menswear, and they just do not really compete. Their business is probably 55% of our volume in menswear. If they can't make it in women's wear, they won't survive. Menswear is an ancillary part of their business. Please.
Harry, you mentioned being, when you started out, being, the buyer, the motivator, the merchandise manager and whatnot. I'd just like to know what, as the company grew, what some of your philosophies were behind hiring people who could support you and who had knowledge that was useful to you, because obviously you couldn't do everything yourself and you didn't know about everything.
Right, right. Well, firstly, I believe that anybody working in management had to be someone that was experienced on our selling floor. In other words, they had interacted with customers and they understood firsthand the kind of culture that we had and how to deal with customers. And our buyers have all come through the stores, and so have all of our senior management, et cetera. The second part of it, of course, is I love doing those things that I eventually get delegated to people, and I had to step back, and I had to agree to a set of principles that they would abide by, and then step back and let them do it. And I found there were people that wanted to share in the kind of excitement there is in our business and our growth and in our culture, and do it our way. And that's why we have so much of a prolonged life with so many of our employees. We have people in our business that have been with us over 40 years, some over 50 years, and a good many over 25 years. I'd like to think that we're a good place to build a career with.
And I also want to ask, was there ever a point where you felt that you had gotten to a point where you had grown and it was good enough for you, and perhaps you didn't want to expand the company any further, you didn't want to spread yourself too thin, so to speak?
No, I've never reached that stage. In fact, if you go up to Bloor Street and see the store, it's 5 levels, 50,000 feet. That's the biggest store we've ever built. In Calgary, we're going to 30,000 feet from 18,000 feet. In Vancouver, we've got a wonderful position at 25,000 feet. We're opening a second store in Calgary. I think that in the next, the business does well over $200 million. In the next few years, I think it'll do $300 million. And if we ever reach a point of saturation where there isn't any growth in Canada through enlarging our major properties, and we're very well positioned in this country. Our position in Vancouver and Ottawa, the only city I think that we're not 100% positioned well in is Montreal. But we have a terrific real estate position, and so our stores have continued to grow in those markets and in the right locations. The only new store we're having is the one in Calgary. I think it's the first one we've opened in 12 years. But beyond that, growth will be, in my view, in the United States and in women's wear, in both.
Would you move back into the United States? I mean, you certainly have a reputation in certain parts of the United States.
I still think that the opportunities are there. There are good retailers in the United States, but I think we bring a different proposition. The nearest thing in the United States that we have to our business are our friends in Connecticut, the Mitchells. The Mitchells have 3 stores, 2 in Connecticut, 1 on Long Island, and have just taken over a bankrupt business in San Francisco called Wilkes-Bashford. And this now makes them, this makes them a national. Now that's a family business with 7 sons in it. 7 sons, they're all in the business. So I think they've got a lot of reserve energy, in their sons. They've all had to prove themselves before they were accepted in the business as well. But there's all kinds of space in the United States to operate a Harry Rosen store, and I can just taste it when I'm in these shopping centers or these major metropolitan areas that our stores could do well there. And we'll just have to prove it, that's all. We did operate in Buffalo, New York for 10 years, the wrong place.
The only competition to you would be the Macy's men's store on
Well,
that's not even really competition.
Neiman's have a very good position in Union Square as well. Yeah, it's a good center.
Gary, if I was your grandson, that would be nice, but if I was your grandson and I wanted to get involved with the business, what questions would you ask?
Well, that would be one of my son who's running the business sons, and he has 3 of them. And they're all being educated. One is in London School of Music. I don't know, he doesn't seem to be interested in the business. The other 2 are at Western doing an MBA and a law degree as well, like their father. Whether they'll come into the business or not, I don't know. I rather have a hunch that they will. And I think that they'll have the qualifications financially and understand the humanistic side of the business. Will they be merchants? That'll have to be proven, and that'll be a judgment only my son can make. At this point, it's too early to say.
It's interesting, the reason I kind of want to maybe pursue that is that I think about the Nordstroms in the San Francisco-based family, fourth generation. Family is actively involved in the sense that they all are assigned one of the Nordstrom stores to go visit periodically.
Yeah.
So that there's a presence, much like you walking out and
Yeah.
going to a Harry Rosen store.
Right.
I think that's a part of the critical thing of how do you keep in touch with your customers.
That is the case. It's management by walking around. However, they're out of Seattle, not out of San Francisco.
Well, I mean, they're in San Francisco.
Oh, yes, they
they're
are.
in LA,
Yeah.
they're in Miami,
Oh, yeah.
they're everywhere.
Yeah, they are. They've done a magnificent job for people that started in the shoe business in Seattle. Wonderful.
Now,
Please.
Executives are very important to the growth and direction of the company, and things don't always go all rainbows and butterflies all the time. How do you maintain that relationship with your core executives?
Will you repeat that question? Can you hear it?
How do you or how do your son maintain their close relationship with their executives, the other executives in the firm?
Well, they're part of a management group that meets every week and has retreats and so on, and they do their planning together. You have to find a group of people that mesh together, and that's been the case now for some time. We've maintained the people that we have, and they work very well together. I think there's only one answer to that, and that is leadership. When you have leadership at the top that creates a culture where people feel like they're participating in the business, then they are career-minded and they feel that they're being fairly treated. When you have people that feel like they're in a family business, often that means dead end. Okay? In other words, a family member is going to come along and be deserving where they have proven themselves. That's the upside, of course, is there's good things to be said for family businesses. I'm not opposed to it. But in our business, the feeling is, and Peter Stansfield is the president, that they can make a career out of being in the company, and they do well enough financially and are fulfilled and are constantly learning. We have an environment of learning. And we make sure they get out and see excellence in retailing in all parts of the world, and visit the major trade shows and visit our vendors and dialogue with our vendors. And we take our selling staff, in many cases, overseas to the major trade shows and to visit vendors. You keep on educating them. I feel that turnover is a commentary on the failure of management. Okay?
That's one very wise comment, guys. Pay attention to that.
Harry, we have a question here. Hi, Harry. Where would you like to see the business in the next 20 years, and how does that differ from where you think the business will end up?
I think the brand Harry Rosen is extremely strong in Canada, and the first opportunity is to find some real estate adjacent to Harry Rosen stores and go into the women's business and do what I said I believe is the way to do it. I think I have a vision of that. Whether my son shares that or has a different vision, I don't know. I think that there's a great opportunity for growth there. The other is the United States is beckoning. The markets are not that different from a taste point of view and a quality point of view and the demographics. There are major markets in the United States that are great targets for Harry Rosen, and I believe that there are two great opportunities there. Beyond that, we have talked to people in the Far East. We've talked to people in Singapore, Hong Kong, and in China about opening stores. And if we did that, it would obviously be a licensed arrangement. But we would participate in helping to establish the business. Whether that'll come to fruition, I don't know. We looked like we were on the verge a short while ago, but right now things have cooled off. But we'll see. There's opportunity for talent in retail, and there's a void where menswear is concerned anyway, where the quality of service provided is concerned. And I think we fill that need. Okay.
I know we touched upon competition a lot, but who would you say is your fiercest competitor within the Canadian market?
Is there a competitor in the Canadian market?
Yes. I'm asking.
Well, it would be Holt Renfrew. They're the only national other than ourselves. There are a lot of good independent stores across the country. I shouldn't say a lot. There are a lot fewer than there were at one time. We have dislodged a lot of that. This notion that people that were part of the fabric of their community were immune to competition, that was disproved by major regional shopping centers and by our presence. We managed to take share of market. So I think that, I don't know, am I answering your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask it again. Okay.
I just, who would you consider your direct competitors other than the ones mentioned? You said Brick Brothers weren't really serving the same target.
No, there's a niche for Brooks Brothers, and we watch them, and we watch, in particular in retail, you re-examine your proposition when you have a negative trend, that is, a downturn in the economy. And you examine your price points, and you examine your vendors, and you examine all kinds of things, and you look at where you are. And right now, I would say that they're not a factor in the clothing business. Their tailored clothing is, to my mind, old and is not good value. I think that we have product that is good value, that is correct for the young as well as the more mature man. And we can coexist with that kind of competition, and they'll be successful and we remain successful. You cannot diversify your business to a point where you are now considered a department store. When that commentary is made about Harry Rosen, I'll be very worried about it. It's still a specialty store, and each store is a specialty store and has a specialty store personality. And we can't make that claim. We're just going to be another player. And I think that the prospects are very good in being what we are, if we can continue. And there's no reason not to be able to continue.
Okay, and I just have another question. How would you said that Larry is well educated in business and finance, but what type of management style would you say he had?
Style of management?
Yes.
He's a little more laid back than I am. I used to, and I still do, when I'm on the store on a Saturday, I've got a set of notes on Monday morning for him on the things I've observed on the selling floor. He may have passed through, and he gets some of the same input, or rather observances that I have. But I think I have it closer to where things are happening. And it's a perception that I think is valuable to the company. It's what, in my view, is a very important part of building the company. But I won't say that his style is not successful. He's just not as inclined to be sales-oriented. So what I try to contribute to the business is the selling aspect, the interaction with customers. Tomorrow I will have a 1-hour session with management at Bloor Street, and I'll be talking about the language of quality. Men don't know what they're getting for their money, and you have to use a language in explaining it to them that they comprehend. And a proposition that is not only describes the value, but delivers the value and creates the expectations in the customer. Okay? That's what I'll be talking about tomorrow morning. Next week, I'll be Tuesday talking to the management of the store, and tomorrow I'll be talking to the broader management in the store. And what we learn in the Bloor Street store, that has any value from my input, is exported to the other parts of the country, because management comes in and spends time in the store and gets updated on what's working and what the experience of the associates are, takes it back to their various venues.
And just, sorry, one last question. Your son, Wayne, did he ever
had no interest in it, had an aversion for the business. I think he was there one Christmas. It was painful. Now he,
Surgeon was much better.
yeah.
We'll go with Shai first and then Nisha second.
Hi, Mr. Rosen. What is your view on the changing retail market in Canada today? And what would your advice be for aspiring entrepreneurs to be successful in this market?
Let's see if I understood your entire question. Can you repeat it for me?
The change in the retail scene today,
Yeah,
what's your viewpoint on it?
yeah,
And the second part of the question was, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs?
yeah.
And success
Yeah,
for them?
good. I love that question. That's a great question. Thank you. Firstly, let me answer your question about entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. I'll go to New York next month in April. I want to see what's happening. And I'll be going down into the village and some of the outlying areas where young entrepreneurs are starting their businesses. And I'll be looking for new ideas, and that's where I'm going to find them. I'm not going to find them at Macy's or Saks or Barney's. Some things are there, but new ideas, people who think differently and are an indicator of new happenings, I'm going to see them and walk the streets in lower New York to find stores that are unique and have a unique proposition. I always say that where you've got to watch the young people starting in business, because with the new ideas, they have less to lose and they will come along with new ideas. So watch them, and we do. And you may say, well, what do you do with that knowledge? Well, it's true, being larger, we're slower to react to what we see happening, but it still integrates our psyche, and it still becomes a useful part of visualizing what's going to happen. And I've watched some of these people grow their business, I've watched others fail, and there's always a lesson in whatever they're doing. As far as opportunities for young people is concerned, I pretty well answered that in that the retail scene is constantly changing. And you're going to see casualties because people just simply, in retail, certain members of them turn old. They become old. They miss the visual, the signs that are there of change. And they're also prosperous, and they're slow to react, and a lot of them get wiped out. And I think that always affords opportunity. It's a constantly moving organism that there'll be new people coming and new people playing, and there's no such thing as saturation. I listened to that, and I read it in the press in the United States and Canada. I don't believe it at all. I think that the market has a certain capacity to absorb, and there'll be casualties when it's over retailed, and it'll come back to the proper levels that it's at. So there's always opportunity, and if you've got an original idea, follow your dream, execute. If you're right, you'll be successful.
We'll go to Nisha.
Hi, Harry. My question was, when I was doing my external research on your company, a lot of the research stated that you had founded Harry Rosen with your brother Lou in Cabbagetown, but I didn't hear you mention him.
Yeah. My brother Lou started in business with me. He left school and he joined me. And he was never interested in the business in a broad sense. He was always very happy in having a clientele and developing a clientele. And he has remained in that capacity throughout the years. He's never been a contributor to business. I wished he had, but he was not of that mind. And you can't come down with any severe judgment on him. He's a happy guy that's fulfilled himself on what he's doing.
So is he not part of the company at all today?
Is he not what?
Does he do
Still in the
something
company.
completely different now?
He's sort of half retired. He's been in Florida now for about 4 months. You come back mid-April and he goes back into the First Canada store, and there he sees some of the old clients that he knows. when I go around the country and I meet people, some of them will tell me, "Oh, how's Lou?" You know, one thing or another. Well, my brother has not replaced his old customers with young people. While one of the people at our store there, like Steve Pollock, he's been with us over 50 years. He still relates to young people. He still understands young men's clothing. He's servicing a fourth generation of some families, you know, because he's remained young in his mind. He relates to the next generation, and not without alienating the present clientele at the various plateaus that they're at. So that is some insight into my brother relationship. Yes, please.
Hi. Just a question about how you dealt with behavior between family members and non-family members. Did you have some sort of code of conduct for the family to follow or anything like that?
No. I really, I don't think that I talked retail at the family dinner table. I was never coercive about our children or family getting involved in this business. I wanted them to get an education and be free to make their own choices. Okay? That was my view. And if none of them were interested, that didn't bother me. I didn't feel I was building a business where the umbilical was such that it could never be severed, you know? It was an entity that I liked what was built, and I think it could endure under proper management, and I believed that we had the ability to develop proper management. And with my son that doesn't have succession out of his own family or any of our other children, I won't be disappointed one bit. I've never had that sense of possession. I was building something that's out there, and I wanted it to be successful and endure, and I wanted to hear a pristine reputation for it. And I'd like to think that that's the position we're in.
Harry said something a minute ago that I want to pick up on. You talked about the difficulty in teaching men what quality is, or can you kind of expand on that? Because I think, I remember spending time with the Nordstroms who used to argue quality is giving customers that which they would want if they knew they could get it, which was a great notion of always trying to exceed expectations. But how do you look at, it is difficult, I think, selling clothes to men and talking about quality. And certainly H&M is a great sales operation, but one would argue it's not very high quality goods. How do you go about doing that with men in this process?
You have to understand your customer, and you have to understand their lifestyle, and probably to some extent the parameters that you need to work within given the various types of activities that people are involved in. Like, you know, your lawyers are probably going to be wearing suits more so than sport coats and so on. But I always had a philosophy of being able to read each customer for their particular attributes. And that is what made them feel good, made them feel confident, made them look good. And, you know, men really don't spend a lot of money in clothing. Women outspend men 4 to 1, you know. So that why a lot of men consume cheap products is they've never had anybody really make them feel good about their purchase. And making them feel good about the purchase is not only knowing that the intrinsic quality is there, but feeling it and seeing it in the mirror and seeing it in the right light. I mean, it's show business, you know. Retail is show business. And you've got to make a man feel good, and you've got to fit his mind as much as you do his clothing. I can go through a bunch of swatches when a customer comes in at one of the trunk shows I used to do, and in 5 minutes I would have 2 or 3 fabrics for him to make a choice of. And some of the sales staff would have a bunch of swatches in front of them, and the customer would be nothing but confused, you know. And how do I know to zero in on just where he's going, what he needs? Well, I quickly find out what's in his wardrobe, what are his favorites, what might be beyond, you know, what is being replaced, what is his potential to expand on his wardrobe? Or does he want to stay where he is? which is fine too. I can go on doing that. There are a whole host of things that are reading people and their personality and their attitudes that are in the selection. I'll give you an example. There was a gentleman that was referred to me by one of these consultants, fashion consultants, and he was a general practitioner and in medicine, and he wanted the family chair in medicine at this hospital. So what he did in preparation for a board interview was he joined a health club, lost weight, bulked up a little bit, went and had his hair groomed according to this fashion consultant, and then I was brought into the picture. Now, I listened to what he was about and what he was trying to do, and I envisaged the people he would be in front of, and I finally came down with one or two choices in the fabric that he should have. And I know he was agreeable, he felt right, I'd taken him through the right steps, and he went ahead with it. Now, he came and picked up the garment, and at that time I had to pick out a tie for him. And that, with all the selection of neckwear, I knew I'm looking for a particular tie that really creams it off, makes it great. And one or two of our people are coming by and looking at what's happening. They're saying, this one. And I say, go away, go away. Another one comes over and says, no, this one here. And I say, go away, And I pick a tie for him that I know is just right. I put it down, and I know the look in his eyes that I've hit a home run with him, you see. And he goes off. Now, I don't know whether he got the chair in medicine or not. But the point is that his confidence couldn't be greater in terms of his appearance. And his appearance precedes him into the room, So did I help him to get a position to elevate himself? Likely I did. I'm a man with a mission. He's a man with a mission too. What do you want? Please.
And gentlemen, you better all go to Harry Rosen.
Please.
We'll take a couple more questions and we'll let Harry rest.
Sir, you built your business around establishing a close interpersonal relationship with customers, correct?
Right.
Now, you guys recently allowed consumers to buy your products off the internet. In the last year or so, I was reading on yesterday. Now, do you find that allowing consumers to buy your products off the internet kind of deters that interpersonal relationship that you're able to develop with your customer?
I'm sorry I'm going to bother you, but you've got to repeat that for me if you can, succinctly as possible. I did not wear my hearing aids today. I didn't wear them yesterday either. I'm going to get run over by a truck tonight, I'm sure.
So, Harry, does selling on the internet remove the personal touch to selling?
Am
Am I close?
And that's right. And,
Yeah.
And also, I just wanted to know what your view on it was. Like, were you did you want to go forward with establishing that online presence?
We are online currently, and we are not having much success with it. And that doesn't mean that we're doing it right. All these things I talked about that are essential in selling higher ticket items, not just shirts and ties and socks and things like that, I think in time may be mastered in technology. I don't know. It may be that you can replace the human aspect of our work. But I see it as probably being an assist in bringing customers into the store that we're on the internet. But the volume of business we're generating from it is very minimal. And do we need an internet's presence? I think we do, in part to learn. In part to learn. It's not costing us a fortune, and hopefully we will maybe start to do it better. But if we don't, I'm not worried about it. As you've detected, I consider the interface, the most important 3 feet in retail is the distance between yourself and your customer, okay? And whether the technology will replace that, I remain open to be proven, but I'm not prepared to, at this point anyway, say that it will.
And just one more quick question. Did you attend a post-secondary education?
Did I what?
Did you
Yes. I took about 10 years of philosophy at the University of Toronto, and I delight in it, and I think that I think philosophically. You know.
Harry, this being a family business course, and there's quite a few students over here in family businesses, what advice would you have for these young students who may take over their family business one day?
Or marry into it.
That's not bad either, you know. I guess you have to be in an environment that is one that you fit into, and that you can be happy and fulfill in and grow in. And I think there are all kinds of opportunities out there for new ideas, because retailing is always changing. Where you're in a family business, I think you have to guard against the possibilities that there are people there that are protecting the status quo, and they're not open and receptive to new ideas. And what can you bring to established businesses, young people like yourself? You can bring your ideas, your new ideas. Because you're young and uninhibited and really pining for success, you're going to have another perspective that business should respect and allow you to be a participant in. And this will aid in the evolution of the business. Businesses that shut their mind to that, whether it's family or people that are working on behalf, of themselves in a company, are, to my mind, vulnerable. And I've watched so many of them go out of business. Just miss the changes that are taking place. You have to understand youth. So I think you should bring your ideas if you're in a family business, and you're generating new and interesting ideas to the fore. And don't be disturbed if it takes a while for people to accept them, or even to really give them credence. But do not become, to my mind, part of the establishment. They don't need you for that. They really don't. Most businesses, to my mind, that have lived with that kind of outlook have gone down the drain. Okay? Renewal is essential, and read the business sections of the paper. You'll get all kinds of stories that are useful.
With that, why don't I'll let you have one last question.
Hi, Mr. Rosen. So as an aspiring entrepreneur looking to get his first location for a startup, would you recommend going after a location with a more attractive, I guess, place in the city, or would you go after something with a lower cost so you can?
If your strengths are your business proposition, your personality, either of those, and you think that you can bring people, you can be a destination store, you will make it in a low-cost, out-of-the-way area. And many people that locate in these kind of areas see those areas upgraded through the presence of a lot of new merchants and people coming in, and the public discovers them. So you get a windfall in terms of maybe a lease that has a good long term, and you're sitting on a low-priced lease. Like Queen Street East here, West rather, in Toronto. Queen Street today is a hot area. 15 years ago, you could lease probably any one of a dozen stores for a fraction of the rent you have to pay today. Now, there's something else you have to know to do apart from your business proposition. You have to know how to tell the public about it. Okay? That can be advertising, or it can be yourself, or it can be a whole variety of things that gets the word out there and makes you a destination store that people will search out. Building a reputation is the most wonderful thing that I've experienced, becoming a brand like we are today and having the credibility we have. You got to have. We started on Parliament Street. We brought the customer to our store. It was not the likely place to be selling upgrade menswear, but we brought the public to our store. And gradually, we became a destination for a whole host of people. I networked my way through the publishing business, through the advertising business, and wound up meaningful. And many of the customers told me they hadn't been on Parliament Street for years. So that's one. The other, of course, is if you've got the money to lay out the rent required in a high-priced location, and you can build a physical plant that you can afford, it always makes life a lot easier. You got to be a lot better to be off-center and to get it across than be successful. You've got to be a lot better, okay? That doesn't mean you don't have to manage a high-priced location and a big investment. You have to know how to do that too. You can blow it. But it takes that much more creativity to be off the mainstream. That's why I told you, when I go to New York in April, I'll be walking Soho and the streets down there and looking at the new players. And I read the trade papers to find out who the new players are. The press often plays them up. Sometimes they don't at all, but I discover them on my own. And I'll go in and talk to these people, try to understand who their customer is and what their appeal is. It's a great lifestyle you've chosen if you're in retail. I'm sure it'll be a very rewarding career.
And you can book slots with him. He'll take you on a walking tour. Okay? By the way, walking around, any place you go, this is the best advice you've ever had. When you go someplace, walk around and see what people are doing. See what they're buying. I remember seeing H&M 15 years ago in Europe and went, why in the heck aren't they in the States? Why aren't they in Canada? Why aren't they in North America?
Sure.
They showed up. And they played havoc with a lot of people because they found a niche nobody else could do. Take the time when you're walking, when you're on vacation, look at that. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, it's wonderful, really. You know, who would have thought that people like H&M and Zara could turn stocks in 6 weeks, could put new ideas into their stores, from creation, from design, to product being in their shelves in 6 weeks. It's amazing. Whoever thought of it, you know? I mean, in my business, generally you bought twice a year. You know, you were fixed for the next season when you bought, you know. 2 turns a year was an achievement.
With that, we ought to let Harry go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.